gosh, we're live. I'm so excited to see. Well, I can't see everyone, but I'm so excited to be here. This is so delightful. Oh, I see little hearts. Isn't this such a fun? This is such a fun conference. The only thing I'm missing is being able to hug people. And since it's fall and everyone is quickly getting sick around here. Hello, Ben. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I've got my camera here and I've got Naresh. Hello. Oh my gosh, this is so delightful. And then I can see everyone in this room. I see a lot of folks are defaulting to the I'm going to sit at the back. I love this. But you're all being, everyone created their little avatars. I'm loving this. Dale, Naz, thank you for putting this together. I think you've made this so delightful. Take a seat in a row. This must have taken so much effort to design. I just want to like zoom in and peek at all the fun stuff. All right. I've got like 15 different, yeah. Tell us where you're connecting from. So I'm Maigen Thomas and I make websites easier to use for everyone. That's my tagline. That's the whole thing. And I've started to figure out that that is how my clients will come find me, and it will be very, very exciting. Oh, Naz is in Switzerland, Helder's in Portugal. I am in Portland, Oregon, Middletown, Maryland, Argentina. We are all over the place. All right, so Middletown, Maryland has gotten 3 hours of extra rest to hang out. Windsor, UK, lovely. All right, so hopefully you can see my screen. You see 5 accessibility quick wins. What I'm going to talk about today are the really quick improvements that you as a designer can make without writing complex code. So this gives you, at the very least, an opportunity for you yourself to make practical fixes that are going to improve the accessibility of your work. And you can also use this information to communicate with developers that you're working with, and even like the product and business people that you're working with, so that they start to come along with us as we make everything a little bit more accessible for everyone. Let's see how my screens are working. Fantastic. Actually, let me go back a second. I want to give you a little bit of context. I did a talk. I actually did a talk a month ago. It was a conference for government folks that was taking place while I was recovering from surgery, so we had to record it beforehand. And it was so fun because I know people in the government, well, allegedly, people in the government are a little bit more aware because of the laws requiring their work, the products and services that they deliver. They're required to be more accessible. I know you have probably heard about the European Accessibility Act. We have the Americans with Disabilities Act here in the US. We've got some in Canada. We've got some laws in Australia. And basically all around the world, we understand that there are lots of folks with disabilities. It's about 16% of the global population, which it equals about the size of the population of China, which is a pretty big population. I think we could agree. And those are just folks with disabilities, people who, like me, are wearing glasses, like you perhaps. Maybe they're hard of hearing or they're deaf. Maybe they have mobility or neurological disabilities, but that isn't including all of the folks it might include, but it doesn't completely encompass 780 million people in the world that are aging adults. So one thing you may not realize is that all of us are on our way to being disabled. In some way, it is a simple fact of being human, living on this planet. At some point, we will develop disabilities. So wouldn't it be nice if we did the work now to make things more accessible and create the practices and the workflows and the expectations of accessibility, so that when it comes time for us to need these accessibility features, it's already in place. So I'm going to show you 5, and I really mean these are very quick wins. Some of them you may already know, but I want to show you how to make any website, and some of this can actually be applied to web apps, mobile apps, pretty much any digital interface that needs to be in front of a human. We want to make them a little bit more accessible. So you don't have to have a computer science degree. You don't need to go to a coding boot camp to learn how to do this, but you can empower the team that you're working with to make things more accessible. One of my favorite things is to use descriptive link text. So before we even think about the design of a page, at the very basics, the internet is created of text and links, basically. Lots of pictures, but pictures don't always show up. So we want to make sure that if we're providing links and we're trying to use the interwebs, the hypertext links that take us from page to page, we want to make sure people know where they are. So screen reader users often scan a list of the links on the page. Sometimes, depending on the screen reader, they can actually get rid of absolutely everything else, especially if they can't see it and they just get a list of links. And if there's just a page of learn more, click here, read more, learn more, well, that's not very helpful, is it? So we want to make sure that people have context. We want people to feel safe moving around on our website and clicking through to more information. And descriptive links tell users what to expect. They have a good idea of what is going to come when they click on that link. So when we see something that says click here, that's not very helpful. It's not very meaningful. It definitely doesn't tell me, oh, you're going to see a page with really cute elephants. I don't know that. And it also doesn't mean that I know that that's maybe a malicious link and I shouldn't click on that. So we want to go through, and you can start with just one page. Ideally, we go through the whole website, the whole web app, and we rewrite any generic links. We'd love to use short but really meaningful descriptions that answer where does this link go and what happens when I click on it. So good examples include view pricing plans, see more information about this 4K or 5K. 4K is a screen. 5K is what I meant to say with going to a run or a walk. We want to make sure people know what's going to happen when they click, they feel safe, and more importantly, our customers, our users, they don't feel stupid. When people feel stupid, when they feel ignorant, when they feel like, oh, I'm not sure what's going to happen, they tend to not take action. And when we have people on our website that don't take action, what do? They're clicking away. They're not purchasing our products. They're not engaging in the activities that we want them to do. They stop taking action. They don't want to do anything. So we want to make sure that people feel safe and they feel confident moving through. All right, so our second quick win is also one of my favorites, and this is probably one that you already know. We want to check the color contrast. On the left-hand side of the screen, I've got a couple of examples. One's not a great example. It's got a contrast ratio of 2.77 to 1, and this fails even the most bare minimum of contrast. This fails the level A requirement. Oh God, what am I trying to say? 2.1 of the WCAG. This does not pass any minimum. It's really hard to read. And again, when we make things hard to read, people miss important information, but they also, again, they feel ignorant. They feel like they don't know what they're doing. And when we cause them to feel ignorant and fearful, because this is us causing them to feel that way, they don't take action. So people with low vision or color blindness, we need high contrast between the text and the background in order to process that information really easily. And especially when we have folks, so this is where I love the curb cut effect. So even if it's not someone who is colorblind or has low vision, maybe they're reading their mobile device on a bright sunshiny day and we've got glare on the phone or we've got glare on our laptop screen. So we benefit from better contrast across the board. Absolutely everyone does. So we want to make sure that, I just realized there's like why and why it matters look exactly the same. Okay, we want to fix it. So we've got the WebAIM color contrast checker. You probably know that there's at least a few plugins or widgets inside of Figma. If you're using Photoshop, even if you're using Canva, which is what I use to create this presentation, Canva now has accessibility checks. So by default, we need to start including the accessibility check in our workflow. We always want to aim for a minimum of 4.5 to 1. There's that colon, which means to 1. And that just means that there is a difference between the background and the foreground. And we want to make sure that for body text, it's 4.5 to 1. For headings and stuff, it's actually a little bit lower. It's only 3 to 1, which when the highest possible ratio is 21 to 1, 4.5 to 1 is not actually asking that much. So we always want to check our body text, our headings, and our link contrast against the background just to make sure, hey, let's make it easy to read. So if you're using gray text because we're de-emphasizing information, we're making it less of a priority to read, that's okay. Make that gray text just a little bit darker. If you've got light text on white backgrounds, maybe you're using a brand color, we want to make sure and darken that up a little bit. It's always a really good idea to have some secondary colors that you can use just to make sure it's really easy to read. I want to make sure that I'm checking the chat too, just in case. Hello from Turin, Italy. Oh my gosh, Dale, that's so fun. I didn't know you were in Turin. And then we also want to make sure, and this is a totally separate WCAG, a Web Content Accessibility Guideline, we want to avoid using only color to communicate meaning. So if we say, ooh, there's an error, this is our little error message, make sure that you're not just using the color red to communicate an error, and give a little bit of text as well, and make sure that the text is easy to read. Feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat. I'm super happy to answer any. Something that I think is super valuable, and I know you already know about alt text. I know you already know about that, but I want to give you a couple of, well, at least one example and tell you a little bit more about why it matters. So alt text is that written description of images. And yes, it's for screen readers, and screen reader users sometimes are people who have limited low vision or impaired vision, and in some cases are completely blind. There is a broad range of people with vision disabilities and vision impairments. So it's not just people who are completely blind. I say this because a lot of folks have a tendency, at least in the conferences that I've done over the last couple of years, when I check in with folks in the audience and ask them, describe to me someone that you know of or someone you believe is disabled. A lot of people kind of tend towards that understanding of, and I don't mean this to be funny, but they kind of veer towards the Stephen Hawking of the disabled world, someone who is profoundly disabled, but they forget that there is a huge, I'd love to say, rainbow of differences that people might have that impair them, that are disabling them from interacting in the world the same way that you or I might. So when I say screen reader users, I don't always mean someone who's completely blind. People who use screen readers lots of times are elderly folks. They are starting to get, or at least in my personal experience, we're getting people more used to having these augmentative information elements. I know I use subtitles all the time because people are really mumbly, and I have hard of hearing in certain sound ranges. I have hearing damage from 6 years as a flight attendant flying, and also going to concerts and not wearing hearing protection. So there's certain sounds like I just can't hear, and weirdly there are certain tones, certain pitches that I cannot hear very well. And you're going to find, again, as you age, there are different aspects of this you're going to experience as well. So the screen reader is really helpful for folks who maybe struggle with cognition. Maybe they struggle to read small text, and it's not just for images, it's reading lots of information on the screen. But when we provide images, and we're providing images, you and I, as designers, we spend a lot of time picking out images. I mean, in fact, I think the hardest thing to do is picking out an image to communicate the meaning of a page or an element or a feature of our product. So when we choose our images, we're doing so with purpose. I don't know a single designer who's just like, yeah, put whatever in there, it's totally fine. No, they have preferences on what that image is supposed to convey. So when we say alt text coconut on a beach, it's not really helpful. It really depends on the context of what we're trying to communicate. So in one example, a good example of alt text for this image, and it's really going to depend on, again, what we need to communicate to our user, is a coconut sits in the sand at the beach. Someone put a straw in it to drink from. Like, that's starting to evoke like vacation vibes. Behind it, the ocean is turquoise, and there's a person standing near the water in the distance. It looks peaceful, like a warm, sunny day by the sea. Now that evokes emotion, that evokes feeling. It gives you a sense of maybe peace, a little excitement, vacation. We really want to communicate that to our users. So while we have blind and low vision users who do rely on those screen readers to read websites to them, without alt text, the images are silent. And therefore, depending on the image that you're using, so is the message that you're trying to communicate to them. So we want to go through our website and our web applications, our mobile applications. We want to make sure and add alt text for those product images, for buttons and icons. Hopefully, we're not using images for buttons. And we also want to make sure to use them for banners and graphics with text. And the alt text that is really good, it describes what the image shows, not just what it is. So remember, we're not saying picture of a coconut on a beach. We're saying what is happening in this image. We're not describing all of the pixels. We're describing what would it be to describe this image to someone across the room, where you're trying to help someone understand who's not sitting beside you looking over your shoulder. If the image is decorative and it doesn't add any meaning, we want to mark it as decorative by leaving the alt field, the alt text field, completely empty. So in the code, you would see alt equals quote, quote, and nothing in between the quotes. And that would basically tell the screen reader, hey, don't worry about this. You don't need to read it out loud. But making sure that people understand what's happening there actually adds two benefits that have nothing to do with disability. So one, I know a lot of you have had your mobile device and you have gone outside of the area where there's easy Wi-Fi access or data access. Not everybody has a huge data plan. We are people who work in the tech industry, so we make a lot of assumptions that everyone else is having a very equivalent experience to us, and that's not true. We've got a lot of folks who live further out in rural areas. They just don't have the same data plans and the same access, and they don't have the same tech knowledge that we do. So when they're opening up their phone, maybe let's imagine someone's grandpa is headed over to the weed and feed store or the feed and seed. I don't know. I haven't been out in the country in a hot minute. So they're headed over to the feed store. They need to pick up something for their small farm, and they're trying to find the right product. And none of the images are showing because they're in a rural area. That alt text is really important because it's going to describe that product even if the image doesn't load. So that is another reason why alt text is super important. And then the third thing I want to say about alt text is, and I just right out the window. What was I going to say? It was the image. Oh gosh, the other important thing that your product and your marketing people are going to be very happy about is that alt text on websites, alt text on images on websites improves the SEO of the website. Google is now penalizing, search engines in general are now penalizing in terms of search rankings what websites are going to show up above their competitors. If they have alt text on images and their competitors don't, this website will be prioritized and served to customers because it is more likely to serve their needs than the website that has images without alt text. So it's also really nice to be robust with our descriptions. That description I gave you about the coconut at the beach. Now, what would be really interesting and really helpful for that organization? Let's imagine that this is on the beach outside of a really nice hotel. Let's say, Pisa, Italy, because I do know that Pisa, at least nearby, maybe a 15-minute walk or a train ride, there's a beach there. And there's a hotel saying, come stay with us. We've got fresh coconuts that we've shipped in from wherever, because I know Italy doesn't have that many palm trees, at least not coconut palms, and it's trying to draw people in. So some really helpful SEO things that we could add to alt text include the name of the hotel, maybe the 5-star accommodations, some key words that would be really helpful to bring folks in. Those actually show up when people do image searches. So even though, yes, this is a picture of a coconut, what's going to show up is all of that alt text that's very useful. That shows up and it helps people understand the context. So alt text is actually one of my favorite things that people should improve. Characters in alt text are not limited. LinkedIn has a limitation of 1,500 characters for the alt text, the alt text message that you can put in when you're adding an image to your post. But according to the internet, there are no limits on how much alt text you can add. So you can feel free to be robust. And if you're using, for instance, product images and you've got 10 different angles of the product that you're selling, each image should have slightly different alt text, and you can use different SEO keywords in there. And now you have a really robust SEO boost because you have all of that really good alt text. It's one of my favorites. All right. Something that a lot of designers don't do because we spend a lot of time in Figma, we spend a lot of time in the design side of things, but it is actually really helpful if you are part of the QA process. When your developers get done and they've created the page, and they're like, "Hey, take a look at this on the test server, or on the not on the production server." Ideally, we don't just send it to production, but on the test server, make sure that you can tab through everything on the page. What we want to do here is we want to check for a logical order. We want it to move from top to bottom, from left to right if we are in an English speaking or a country where it moves from left to right. If you are in a country or using a language such as Japanese or Arabic, and we read from right to left, then we want our tab order to logically follow how the person would expect to experience the page. I know you have experienced, same as I have, websites where we're, especially through forms, when we're tabbing through forms and it suddenly goes up here. Oh, that means someone did not test to make sure that the website, the web page, is logically accessible using the keyboard. We want to make sure that we can reach all buttons, all links, all form fields. We can access all of our menu elements, and that we can actually see where the focus is on the page. This meets several different web content accessibility guidelines. People with mobility impairments navigate entirely by keyboard. Some people with mobility impairments navigate entirely by the keyboard. So if our site can't be used without the mouse, it excludes people. And if people can't interact with our website, what do? They leave. They're out of here. They're going to go to your competitor. At best, they leave and they don't pay you or give you money. At worst, they can file a lawsuit because your company has disabled them from accessing the information that they need. So we always want to use the tab key to navigate through the site. We can always use shift tab to move backwards. If we lose focus, if that little outline, that focus indicator disappears, or somewhere we get stuck, it's usually in a carousel, we want to flag that as a priority fix for the dev or the web team. Focus styles should always be visible. Lots of devs, or at least devs in I would say the middle 2000s, the 20 teens, we had a tendency to say, "Oh, I don't like how that looks. It's really tacky. That's ugly." And then we started suppressing the focus styles. We want to make sure that that is not in fact the case, because it is super, super important. No one should have to guess where they are on the page. And then lastly, we want to make sure that our website headings work like a document outline. We don't typically hand over a bunch of documents and just be like, here is a wall of text, not unless you are required to write a 2,000-word essay. And even then, we really want to see those headlines because it helps us understand what's going on. They're not just for style and panache, they do provide the structure. So when we use a screen reader users navigate using the headings. It actually targets things in a way that just using the keyboard to navigate doesn't. And there's tons of different screen readers, so everything works just a tiny bit differently, but it also works for sighted users. We see big title, second size title, and we understand where we are here. Like here we've got the main headline, the secondary headlines, and then a tertiary headline, and so on and so forth. We want to make sure that we can understand exactly where we are, and we get a general sense of what to expect, and if we're even on the right page, if we're able to see very quickly the headings that guide us towards the information that we need. So we also want to use proper HTML heading tags, the H1, H2, H3. We should never have more than one H1 per page. It's what indicates the most important topic of the page. And then we should nest those headings logically, the page title, section title, subsection title. And then we want to have, bonus win, logical headings. Again, they boost your SEO. When we have that important information, kind of a summarization or at least a clue of what the next paragraph is about, Google can perceive that information. They're getting smarter and smarter, including ChatGPT and other AI tools that are like people are using them like Google search. They are able to kind of summarize that information. It's that same logical order that a language learning model does. It puts the words in a logical order. It uses the information that it finds on the websites in order to do that. So we'd love to see our websites improved in our search features and maybe even get surfaced in ChatGPT because we've made our website more accessible for users. All right, we're exactly at 25 minutes. I want to give a couple minutes for if anyone has any questions. Hopefully this is very easy to understand. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I don't think I have my information. Okay. Best way to handle brand colors that don't meet accessibility standards, like on buttons when you're not allowed to change or darken them. Thank you so much for asking this. This is a really good opportunity to bring your brand designer and your marketing team, because usually they're like, it has to be this brand color because this aligns with our logo. Fantastic. You can show them what, there's a matrix kind of thing that you can create where it shows you like, this is black and white and our background colors and why these are color contrast. And at this point you can just say, hey, I love that we're using our brand colors. I need slightly darker colors so that we can increase the contrast. We need to meet these minimum accessibility requirements or people can sue us, and we don't want to get sued for something really silly. So let's add some secondary colors that we're allowed to use for maybe button colors. People get really bogged down by thinking we have to stay with just this color, and it first creates a really monotonous looking interface, but also just really simple fixes. So we can add shade to it. That's where I think it's HSL, no, not HSL color. We can add some darkness to it, darken that color down a little bit. We're staying in the same color family, but we're darkening it down so that we have appropriate contrast. And then you can only use those for certain areas and not like the logo or something, but you can ask to create some additional colors in order to meet those guidelines, because we want to include people and not exclude people simply based on color. Really good question. I appreciate you asking that. I'm like, wee. Perfect. Okay. I'm Megan Thomas. I am always here to help if you have any questions about making websites more accessible. This is my entire area of expertise. I have built an agency on this, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at megan.thomas@gmail.com. I'm super happy to help that. Thank you so, so much for your time today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference and take good care and enjoy.